Summer, 1864. Atlanta's factories hammer out Confederate weapons while General William Sherman studies his maps. He knows a brutal truth. Starve the rail lines, this southern fortress collapses. Tonight, we witness the battle that doomed the Confederacy's beating heart. Everything changes at Jonesboro. Confederate General John Bell Hood paces headquarters, tracing 4 rail lines feeding Atlanta, like arteries. 3 already lost to Union cavalry. Only the Macon and Western survives. His finger stops at Jonesboro. Lose this railroad town. Lose everything. His hand trembles. Can he defend 20 miles of track with a bleeding army? 6 weeks of siege. Artillery pounds brick buildings into rubble while citizens huddle in basements. But Hood won't surrender while supplies flow north from Macon. Sherman realizes something. Battles won't break this city. Only severed rails will force Hood's hand. He plans something audacious, abandon his own supply line entirely. Late August brings Sherman's gambit. March 60,000 men south in a vast arc, pretend to retreat. Hood will celebrate, then strike the railroad at Jonesboro. It's insane or brilliant. His corps commanders look uncertain. Sherman smiles coldly. Gentlemen, we're going to make Georgia howl. They march at dawn. I'm Private James Cooper, 14th Corps. Writing Mother tonight before we march into unknown country. Officers claim we're pulling back, but something feels different. The general's got that look like a man holding 4 aces. If God wills it, I'll see Ohio by Christmas. Your son, James. August 28th. Union columns vanish from Atlanta's trenches. Hood scouts report Yankees withdrawing northward. In Confederate headquarters, officers pass whiskey, celebrating. Sherman's whipped! But Hood stares at his maps, gnawing uncertainty. Would Sherman abandon 4 months of siege without one final, devastating blow? Something feels wrong. That night, Sherman's forces wheel south through darkness like a closing door. Campfires dot Georgia for miles. Soldiers march quietly, equipment muffled with rags. One corps splits toward Rough and Ready Station. Another targets Jonesboro. The trap closes. Hood doesn't see it yet. By dawn, 60,000 enemies surround his lifeline. The Macon and Western Railroad, single track through pine forests and red clay. Every hour, freight cars rumble north, carrying ammunition, flour, salt, medicine, everything Atlanta needs to breathe. At Jonesboro Depot, a telegraph operator named Samuel Price taps routine messages, unaware that an entire Union army approaches through the pines outside. August 30th. Union axes bite railroad ties near Rough and Ready. Soldiers heat rails over bonfires until they glow orange, then twist them around trees. Sherman's neckties. Each destroyed section cuts deeper into Atlanta's lifeline. Miles south, Hood finally understands. He must counterattack immediately, or watch his city starve into submission. Hood faces an impossible dilemma. Send his entire army south to save Jonesboro. Sherman might seize undefended Atlanta. Keep forces at Atlanta, lose the railroad forever. He splits the difference, dispatches 2 corps under General William Hardee. It's a desperate gamble. By evening, Hardee's exhausted men force march through August, heat toward catastrophe. Dust clouds rise from thousands of Confederate boots. Canteens run dry. Men collapse roadside, gasping for water that doesn't exist. A Tennessee corporal mutters, "We're walking into hell to save a railroad." His sergeant replies grimly, "Hell's what Atlanta becomes without Jonesboro." They march faster. Sunset finds them 10 miles closer to death. August 31st dawns humid, tense. Confederate battle lines form east of Jonesboro. Hardee orders attack at 3 in the afternoon. His men are exhausted, disorganized from forced marching. Officers glance nervously at strong Union earthworks ahead. A Georgia captain thinks, "This feels wrong, attacking entrenched Yankees after brutal march." But orders are orders. Inside Union breastworks, we fix bayonets and check percussion caps. General Oliver Howard rides the line, voice steady as stone. "They'll come hard, boys. Make every shot count." I'm from Iowa, farming country. The German immigrant beside me loads his rifle with practiced hands. We both know what's coming. Death doesn't care about accents. 3 o'clock. Confederate artillery opens shells screaming overhead like demons. Then that sound. The rebel yell. high and wavering, echoing across cornfields. Gray lines surge forward through stubble and scattered pines. Union rifles erupt in rippling volleys. Men fall in rows like cut wheat. Confederates keep coming, climbing over their own dead. Colonel James Martin leads the 1st Arkansas forward, sword raised high. Bullets snap past like angry hornets. He reaches Union earthworks, plants his regimental flag atop the parapet. For one magnificent moment, it flies there defiantly. Then Union reinforcements arrive with fixed bayonets. Martin falls. His blood soaks the flag he died defending. Arkansas weeps tonight. The attack collapses in 90 brutal minutes. Confederate wounded crawl back through trampled corn, leaving blood trails in red Georgia clay. Hardee's losses exceed 1,400 men, killed, wounded, captured. He's gained nothing. Union lines stand unbroken. Worse, scouts report more Yankees approaching from the north. Sherman's entire army converges on Jonesboro. Tomorrow brings annihilation. That night, Confederate surgeons work by lantern light in a makeshift hospital. A Georgia boy, 17 years old, whispers for his mother while the doctor saws off his shattered leg. Outside, burial details dig trenches for the dead. The railroad still runs tonight. By tomorrow's sunset, it won't matter. Everyone knows worse. Fighting comes at dawn. September 1st, Sherman masses overwhelming force for the decisive blow. 4 Union corps encircle Jonesboro from 3 sides. Hardee's exhausted Confederates dig frantically, strengthening earthworks with trembling hands. They're outnumbered 3-1. A Kentucky lieutenant looks at the overwhelming blue formations, massing, and knows this is the end. Atlanta falls today. General Jefferson Davis, no relation to the Confederate president, commands the 14th Corps. His men wait in battle formation, officers checking pocket watches. Attack scheduled for 4 in the afternoon. Davis rides among his troops, voice calm as Sunday morning. Steady now, boys. We finish this today. Soldiers nod grimly. Some will die finishing it. 4 o'clock arrives. Union artillery opens with devastating Fury shells, disintegrating Confederate earthworks, hurling dirt and splintered logs skyward. Then Federal infantry advances. Not rushing, walking steadily forward in perfect mechanical lines. Drums beat cadence. Officers bark commands. It's terrifying in its precision, like watching a machine designed specifically to kill you. Confederate riflemen fire desperately, reloading as fast as trembling hands allow. The blue wave staggers, reforms, keeps coming inexorably. A Mississippi sergeant screams, orders until a Minié ball tears through his throat. His men break, running for the rear in panic. The Union line crashes into Confederate positions like an iron tsunami. Hand-to-hand combat erupts immediately. Rifle butts crush skulls. Bayonets punch through ribs. Men grapple in trenches, clawing and biting like animals. A Confederate major empties his revolver into charging Yankees, then swings the empty pistol like a club. Someone shoots him. He drops without sound. Blue soldiers pour through the broken line. Some rebels flee south. Others raise trembling hands and surrender. By sunset, Jonesboro belongs to Sherman. Confederate dead lie in windows where they fell defending earthworks. Union burial parties begin grim work. One soldier finds a letter in a dead rebel's pocket, a wife's words about their newborn daughter named Sarah. He carefully folds it, places it back, gently. Even enemies deserve that small dignity. War teaches strange mercies. That night, Sherman's engineers descend on the railroad with systematic fury. They tear up miles of track, heat rails until they glow red, twist them into useless spirals around trees. Every tie burns, every bridge collapses. The Macon and Western Railroad, Atlanta's last artery, ceases to exist. The city's fate is sealed. Hood receives the telegram at midnight. In Atlanta, Hood reads the message. Jonesboro fallen, railroad destroyed. He stands motionless for a long moment, then gives the order everyone dreaded. Evacuate the city tonight. Destroy everything of military value. His voice barely whispers. 4 months of siege, thousands dead, ending because of one catastrophic battle 20 miles south. History turns on small hinges. September 1st becomes September 2nd at midnight. Atlanta erupts in orchestrated destruction. Engineers pack 80 freight cars with ammunition and artillery shells, set fuses, then run for their lives. The explosions begin at 11. Massive detonations shattering windows 5 miles away. The sky glows orange with burning warehouses. Citizens think the world is ending. They're not entirely wrong. Mrs. Sarah Huff huddles with her 3 children in their basement as explosions rock the city. Each blast shakes plaster from the ceiling in white clouds. Her youngest daughter Emma screams with each concussion. Sarah holds her tight, whispering lies about safety, about morning bringing peace. Through the basement window, she watches Atlanta's arsenal detonate, mushrooming fire into night. Confederate cavalry forms the rear guard as Hood's army evacuates north on McDonough Road. Wagons creak under loads of wounded soldiers groaning with each bump. Walking wounded lean on comrades. Behind them, Atlanta burns from a dozen fires simultaneously. A Tennessee captain takes one last look backward at the burning city. We'll never see her standing again. September 2nd morning. Union patrols cautiously enter Atlanta's outskirts. They find smoldering ruins where munitions factories stood yesterday. Railroad depots reduced to blackened timbers. But residential areas remain largely intact. Hood destroyed military assets, not homes, a small mercy in total defeat. Mayor James Calhoun awaits them nervously with the city keys. Atlanta surrenders. Sherman reads Mayor Calhoun's surrender message. The city is yours. 4 months of siege. 3 major battles. Thousands dead, culminating in this moment. Sherman doesn't celebrate. He writes Washington simply, Atlanta is ours, and fairly won. The North will celebrate for him tonight. Church bells will ring across the Union. Lincoln's re-election suddenly seems inevitable. The political earthquake reaches Washington within hours via telegraph. President Lincoln faces re-election in 2 months. Northern newspapers had declared the war a failure. Lincoln's presidency doomed to defeat. Atlanta's fall changes everything overnight. Suddenly, Union victory seems inevitable. Peace Democrats lose their strongest argument. History pivots on September 2nd, 1864. In Richmond, Jefferson Davis receives Hood's report with visible devastation. Atlanta, the Confederacy's industrial heart, its symbol of resistance gone. He knows what this means militarily and psychologically. The South's hope of Northern war weariness forcing negotiations evaporates like morning dew. Now they fight only for survival, not victory. Independence becomes a fading dream. Back at Jonesboro, Union soldiers establish a permanent garrison. They rebuild portions of the railroad for federal use track extending north into conquered Atlanta. A Wisconsin private sits on a pile of twisted rails, Sherman's neckties, and writes, home. We've broken their back here, Ma. This war's nearly finished, I reckon. Your loving son, Thomas. The Battle of Jonesboro cost approximately 3,000 casualties, total modest compared to Gettysburg's slaughter or Shiloh's horror. But its strategic impact dwarfed the bloodshed. By severing Atlanta's last supply line, Sherman achieved what months of direct assault couldn't. Hood's abandonment of Georgia's most important city. Sometimes, small battles determine great outcomes. Hood's army retreats toward Lovejoy's Station, then curves west toward Alabama. They've lost Atlanta but remain an army and being 20,000 ragged, angry men. Hood plots desperate schemes, invade Tennessee, threaten Sherman's supply lines, force him northward. His officers exchange worried glances. The general seems unhinged by defeat, grasping for impossible redemption through more bloodshed. Sherman occupies Atlanta and immediately begins transformation into a Union stronghold. He orders civilians evacuated, a harsh measure drawing fierce protests. But Sherman thinks only of military necessity, not sentiment. War is cruelty, he writes his wife. You cannot refine it. Atlanta becomes a fortress and supply depot for his next campaign, the March to the Sea. A former slave named Marcus walks Atlanta's streets, now patrolled by Union soldiers in blue uniforms. He's lived his entire life here under bondage, but today feels reborn. Federal officers promise freedom, though uncertainty shadows everything. What comes next? Where does he go? Freedom tastes strange after 28 years in chains, exhilarating, yet terrifying simultaneously. Northern newspapers explode with celebration. Atlanta is ours. Headlines scream across the Union. Political cartoons show Lincoln crushing the rebellion with his boot. The Democratic Convention, which nominated General McClellan on a peace platform just days earlier, suddenly looks foolish. Sherman's victory reshapes the entire presidential race overnight. War weariness transforms into renewed determination. Southern morale plummets catastrophically after Atlanta's fall. Many Confederates now believe independence is hopeless fantasy. Desertion rates spike, soldiers slipping away to protect families from approaching Union armies. A North Carolina regiment loses 50 men in 1 week through desertion. Officers stop pursuing deserters. They understand the cause is dying. Why chase ghosts? I'm General Sherman, planning my next move from Atlanta headquarters. Maps spread across my desk show Georgia stretching to the Atlantic coast. Savannah sits there, 300 miles distant. No Confederate army blocks the route. My finger traces the path through farmland and forests. I can make Georgia howl. I tell my staff. They believe me. Veterans of Jonesboro carry mental scars beyond physical wounds. Ohio Sergeant Thomas Reed can't sleep without seeing Confederate dead piled in earthworks. Every night, the same nightmare. The young rebel who begged for water before dying. Reed gave him his canteen. It didn't matter. The boy died anyway. Reed still sees that face nightly. War haunts forever. The destroyed railroad at Jonesboro becomes a tourist attraction after the war ends. Veterans return to walk the battlefield, showing sons where they fought and bled. Farmers plow up rusted rifles and cannonballs annually. Someone erects a small monument where the Confederate line broke. Rain slowly erases the inscription. Eventually, only veterans remember exactly what happened here. Hood's military reputation never recovers from losing Atlanta to Sherman. He'll attempt that Tennessee invasion disastrously. At Franklin and Nashville, his army gets shattered beyond repair, ceasing to exist as effective force. By war's end, he's finished as a commander forever. Jonesboro haunts him until death. One decision splitting forces cost him Atlanta, his career, his legacy. General Hardee, who commanded Confederate forces at Jonesboro, survives the war. He writes bitter letters about Hood's incompetence, the impossible orders, the exhausted men thrown against entrenched positions like wheat into a thresher. We were sacrificed, he concludes. History debates whether any Confederate general could have saved Atlanta. Probably not. Sherman held all the cards. The common soldiers who fought at Jonesboro drift into post-war obscurity. They return to farms, open shops, raise families far from battlefields. Some join veterans organizations, attending reunions where former enemies shake hands awkwardly. A few write memoirs nobody reads. Most carry the war silently, memories locked away where wives and children can't reach the darkness inside. Atlanta rises from ashes surprisingly quickly. Within 10 years, the city rebuilds bigger than before. Steel and brick, replacing wooden structures. Rails reconnect, now serving Union commerce and progress. The New South emerges here, industrial, forward-looking. But old-timers remember when Confederate flags flew, when Hood's army defended these streets, that Atlanta died at Jonesboro forever. Sherman's march to the sea begins mid-November, 2 months after Atlanta's capture. 60,000 soldiers leave the burning city, marching toward Savannah through Georgia's heart. They live off the countryside, destroying railroads and economic resources systematically. It's total war pioneering tactics, foreshadowing 20th century conflicts. Jonesboro made this march possible. Everything connects. Lincoln wins re-election in November by landslide margins. Atlanta's fall proved decisive in swaying Northern voters. Without Sherman's victory, McClellan might have won, possibly negotiating Confederate independence. Instead, Lincoln secures a mandate to finish the war unconditionally, crushing the rebellion completely. Jonesboro's impact ripples through American history far beyond one September battle in Georgia. The Macon and Western Railroad eventually gets rebuilt during Reconstruction years. Trains run again where Sherman's men twisted rails into neckties around pine trees. But the Confederacy it once fed is gone forever. Dust and memory. The railroad serves a reunited nation now, carrying commerce and passengers instead of war supplies. Progress runs on rails Union soldiers once destroyed. Confederate veterans gather at Jonesboro reunions in the 1880s and 90s. They're old men now, gray-bearded and slow-moving. They walk the battlefield, pointing out positions, telling stories that grow taller annually. Arguments erupt about who stood where, who retreated when. The battles become bigger in memory, their roles more heroic. It's how old soldiers survive. A historical marker appears at Jonesboro in 1907. The inscription reads, "Here the fate of Atlanta was decided." It doesn't mention the screaming wounded, the burning flesh, the boy, soldiers dying far from home in Georgia, Clay. Monuments never do. They commemorate sacrifice without acknowledging its terrible, specific horror. History sanitizes everything, eventually. Modern Jonesboro sprawls as an Atlanta suburb strip malls and subdivisions covering the battlefield. Few residents know Confederate earthworks once crossed their backyards. A small museum preserves the history, visited mostly by Civil War enthusiasts and school groups. The battle that doomed the Confederacy fades from public consciousness, remembered mainly by historians and ghosts. But the strategic lessons endure in military academies worldwide. They still teach Sherman's campaign the indirect approach, attacking supply lines instead of fortifications, maneuver over frontal assault. Jonesboro demonstrates how logistics determine victory more than courage alone. It's a hard truth. Wars aren't won by heroism, but by railroads, supplies, ruthless calculation. Strategy trumps bravery. General Sherman dies in 1891, a celebrated Union hero. His funeral attracts thousands to New York. Among the honorary pallbearers, former Confederate General Joseph Johnston, who fought Sherman through Georgia. Their mutual respect transcended wartime enmity. Johnston catches pneumonia at the cold February funeral. He dies weeks later. They're buried as old soldiers. Hood lives until 1879, dying in a yellow fever epidemic that also kills his wife and eldest daughter within days. His final years were spent defending his Atlanta campaign decisions in lengthy writings. Few historians accept his arguments. Losing Atlanta, begun at Jonesboro, defined his legacy permanently. Tragedy followed him beyond the battlefield. Some men never escaped their failures. The soldiers who twisted rails into Sherman's neckties never imagined their handiwork would fascinate historians a century later. Photographs from the era show these metal pretzels testaments to Union thoroughness and destructive efficiency. A few survive in museums, rusted and twisted, silent witnesses to the day Atlanta's last lifeline severed. Touch one, feel history's weight. Atlanta's fall reverberated internationally across Europe. British and French governments, considering Confederate recognition, abandoned the idea permanently. European investors wrote off Confederate bonds as worthless paper. The South's hope of foreign intervention died at Jonesboro as surely as soldiers in the earthworks. Diplomacy follows military fortune. Always has, always will. Victory attracts allies. Defeat brings isolation. African Americans celebrating freedom in Atlanta named their first church Friendship Baptist in October 1864. The congregation includes former slaves like Marcus, who walked Atlanta's streets that September morning tasting freedom for the first time. Freedom came through violence and fire, but it came. They gather Sundays, singing hymns of deliverance, thanksgiving, and hope for uncertain futures. The railroad depot at Jonesboro, where telegraph operator Samuel Price tapped routine messages before battle, burns during the fighting. It gets rebuilt, destroyed again during Reconstruction violence, rebuilt again. Trains still stop there today. Passengers boarding don't realize they stand where an empire's fate was sealed in blood and iron. History hides beneath ordinary places. Memory fades. Private James Cooper, who wrote his mother before the march, survives Jonesboro. He returns to Ohio, marries a schoolteacher named Elizabeth, farms 80 acres. He never discusses the war, even when his sons ask repeatedly. They find his diary after his death, terse entries about weather, marches, casualties. The entry for September 1st reads simply, "Heavy fighting. We won. Nothing more." Confederate soldiers who surrendered at Jonesboro spend months in northern prison camps cold, hungry, diseased. They're exchanged or paroled eventually, returning to a South that no longer exists. Their farms are ruined, currency worthless, labor system collapsed. Some head west, starting over in Texas or California. Others endure, rebuilding slowly in Georgia's unforgiving red clay. The cornfield where Confederates attacked on August 31st returns to agriculture after the war ends. Farmers plow it for decades, occasionally unearthing bullets, belt buckles, and bones. Corn grows particularly well there. Locals joke grimly about the fertilizer enriching the soil. Blood makes things grow. It's a truth as old as agriculture, as permanent as war itself. Sherman's telegram, "Atlanta is ours," and "fairly won," gets preserved in the National Archives. School children read it in textbooks for generations. The phrase, "fairly won," carries weight. Sherman meant, through legitimate military action, not treachery. But what's fair about war? The widows and orphans at Jonesboro might dispute that word. Victors write telegrams in history books. Look at a map of Sherman's Atlanta campaign. Follow the blue arrows curving south from the city toward Jonesboro. That arc represents 60,000 men marching through August heat. That movement broke the Confederacy's spine. One railroad town, one desperate battle, one severed supply line. Sometimes history pivots on small places, forgotten by time. Remember Jonesboro. It changed everything forever. Tonight, as you close your eyes, picture that September sunset over Jonesboro. Smoke rising from burning rails, wounded men crying for water, the telegraph wires cut, Atlanta's last artery severed. In that moment, the Confederacy died, though it wouldn't surrender for 8 more months. The war's true end came here, in red Georgia clay, where Sherman made his promise come true.